is your view and also an honest assessment of India's trajectory towards a unified theatre commands?
Are you a military guy? I understand your sentiments and your enthusiasm for this.
There's anecdotal evidence and also a strong case from an operational efficiency and even military effectiveness standpoints to go for unified theatre commands so far as the Indian Armed Forces are concerned. The Kargil Review Committee talks about it, the Jaishankar Report Committee talks about it. However, the progress that India has made in this regard has been abysmally slow, and given the growing interlinkages between a strong armed forces and geopolitics, given the rise of China, what is your view and also an honest assessment of India's trajectory towards a unified theatre commands? And also...
No, only one question. That's it. We have many more to get into.
Are you a military guy?
No, he used to serve under Mohan Parekarji in his office. So
Okay.
he has.
So answer is kind of.
Kind of. I mean, not military, but yeah, nearly there. But his persistence was like that.
I've largely observed the armed forces with a lot of interest and some responsibility from outside. I had the privilege of working with them directly in one part of my career. And it's much easier to in a sense, analyze why a theatre command should come about. And today, the merits of that are accepted. It's a very different task to actually make it happen. And this is not unique to India. I mean, if you look at other countries who have been through that process, the US is a very well-known example, you know, the Goldwater-Nichols Act. But the whole debate which preceded and succeeded that, China has been through that experience. So I don't, some of the characterizations, the impatience of the analyst doesn't take into account the complications of the forces concerned. It's a much harder thing to do. There are many departures from the way we work. There are different assignations of responsibilities which come with it. So in many ways, you conceptualize, let me tell you, when you look at the world through theatre commands, the world itself looks to you very differently than it does when you have, in a sense, three forces and each service has its own command. So I would, I understand your sentiments and your enthusiasm for this. As I said, as a fundamental concept today, that is accepted in this country. But I think you need to bear with with all the the wrinkles and the second, third order effects of such a change being implemented. Perspective, the P3, the non-G2, and then you have this set of, you can say, middle powers, upper middle powers. One neat category would actually be the G20 countries, but I also give due weight to Nigeria here. But let us say there are those roughly 10 odd countries which would be G20 countries of regional influence. Yeah. My sense is you're going to see both lateral and to some degree vertical collaborations. Some of the collaborations would come from pre-existing architecture. I mean, you have alliances. The alliances or groupings, I mean, the EU allows a lot of countries to coordinate. The NATO allows a lot of countries to coordinate. Australia, Japan, by virtue of their treaty alliances, treaty relationships, do that. The interesting ones would be the loners, in a way, the ones who are not embedded in a pre-existing structure. And you can see that in different ways they are both expanding options, but also trying to forge something common. I give you a few examples. I mean, if you look at, say, BRICS expansion, some of the countries that showed interest and have actually moving in that direction, I mean, take something like Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia is clearly widening its options. The UAE is widening its options. But at the same time, these loner countries, these independent countries, through initiatives like IMEC, are working,
Together.
so they're also trying to forge, I would say, common ground on a particular set of issues. So you're going to see, they would appear to be contradictory trends. To my mind, they are not. I think, to me, it's more like the natural diversity of the world finally escaping the clutches of a discipline imposed after the Cold War. So the Cold War really, compelled or, incentivized a whole lot of countries to come together very tightly. That's now loosening up. There'll be consequences. A lot of countries will now, try to have multiple options. And then once, even as they do that, they will form combinations of their own. And that's really going to make international relations very interesting.
Is India willing to lead that effort?
Is
Are
India
you
willing to lead that effort?
No, I don't think anybody can lead that effort. My sense is you'll get combinations. We would try to be involved in a lot of foreign policy is to be involved in as many of these enterprises and initiatives and groupings as possible. So it's a sort of, in my book, I've actually described it as making friends and influencing people. So how are you ideally omnipresent, omni-relevant, and that's also today, I would say, a new way of conducting foreign policy.
So, Dr. Jaishankar, if I was to ask you to pose a question to these very fine minds and give them, say, 30 seconds or 40 seconds to respond to that one inquiry that you would like to hear from or seek their inputs on, what would that be for them?
Well, I think for Michael, from an Indian perspective, the real issue as we look forward at India, Australia is, in a way, how much Australia is Indo-Pacific and how much Australia is Western. I think that's the duality which most people would be interested in.
Well, let me answer that. Let me say I had
Michael, I'll give you your turn.
Okay.
And for Leslie?
No, let him answer that. I'll think of
I'm running out of time, and hence
Okay.
I'm going to give Michael the last word to come because he started first. But do you have questions for any others that we can take and then go to them and close?
Well, I think what I would, in a sense, urge you to articulate, because given Nigeria's today importance, is within, we tend to talk about Africa, but you look at Nigeria, which is a significant power in its own right. What would be the next set of countries coming up? How do they plan their rise? Because that is something which is clearly awaiting you.
And to Bruce?
Bruce,
2026 America.
I'm tempted to ask him a Canadian question, but then I get into trouble. So I just want to confirm that I have your good wishes that Indo-Canadian relations would continue to improve.
Okay, so Bruce, that's a cue for you to respond to something. And what about Leslie?
Yeah, I would be really curious because you clearly got immersed very deeply in the G20 experience. So I would be curious to get that sense from you, and in a way to Michael also, because Lowy had put out a study, I think, on how young Indians
think about foreign policy
are interested in foreign policy. Because I think that's really today, in the coming elections, almost 90 million young Indians would be voting for the first time.